What's good, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome back to the Water Boys channel. As today we got some minor news that we all expected to happen with Orlando Brown Jr. But before we dive into any of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I will give you daily content throughout the off season, throughout draft time, throughout training camp time, and when we dive right into the 2022 NFL season. But without further ado, let's jump into Orlando Brown and see what's next for him moving forward. So, as we all expected today, the Kansas City Chiefs put the non-exclusive franchise tag on Orlando Brown Jr. What does that mean? That means that he could still be open to sign to any team. Any team can make him an offer at least, and Kansas City can match that. But with that being said as well, is if a team makes an offer, they got to give Kansas City 2 first-round draft picks. So that's where it's kind of, you know, KC can get something in return. But even at that, if someone does make a high offer, I highly expect someone to match that. And we've seen in situations in prior times past that not usually teams make these high offers unless it's like some stellar player. Not a lot of teams do this. That's why it's no risk, no reward type of thing. They know they're going to get their player. They know they're going to get them under the franchise tag, and they know they can still work out a long-term contract. Now, more news was announced today too that the salary cap, it does raise to $208 million, so that is a big lead. I almost said lead change like we're playing again, but that is a big change from last year. Due to the COVID hit, it went down. It was around $180 million. Now we're going up to 208, and we're going to see this trend now moving forward, where that salary cap is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and these players are going to be getting paid more and more and more. So that also helps Kansas City moving forward too. And this franchise tag that was put on Orlando Brown Jr. was for $16.6 million. Now, a lot of Chiefs fans, they might know because we're in tune, but the NFL side will be like, oh, Kansas City is over the cap. You'll see this a lot. They'll be like, how does Kansas City get this money? From last year, when we were signing players, when we had $700, and then we end up making a lot of money, not making, but, you know, restructuring things, making sure we was under the cap and making sure we was getting players, they will do it again this year. So they had $11 million in cap space. What does that mean? That means now there will probably be, as of tomorrow morning, $5 million over the cap. But no need to worry, because we know there's the likes of a Tyreek Hill extension coming that will free up cap space. Mahomes can restructure. Tooney can restructure, and then if Frank Clark does get cut, which we all anticipate he will, that will free up another $12 million. But as of this moment and going in tomorrow, KC will be $5 million over the cap. So be prepared to see weird headlines that KC's over the cap. They spend way too much money on player. They're done. Their dynasty was over. Their run was over. Get used to seeing a lot of that, and then in another 2 weeks we will see KC sign a free agent, a big signing that everyone's gonna be like, how do they keep doing it? It happens every year. So stop questioning it. Like I always mention, salary cap is no cap. So don't pay attention to it, because there is way to restructure and get around it. But let's talk about Orlando Brown Jr. and if he was worthy of getting the franchise tag. Let's say over a guy like the Honey Badger, because this could be up for debate too, and it depends on who you guys are, who you're talking to, and how you view him. So let's say the KC was to put, why am I drawing a blank? A franchise tag on the Honey Badger. That would have been for $12.8 million, which might have been around the range you might have wanted to pay a Honey Badger. It depends on what he sees on the open market. We don't know what he'll see. Now there's reports saying that he'll crack double digits, which is kind of surprising, because that's what we all assumed he was going to crack. We thought he would be the 14 to 16 million range. So he's in a test free agency out, and if he's averaging that 10 million range, he might be back in Kansas City. But let's focus on Orlando Brown Jr. This was a no-brainer, you guys. You don't trade for him last year. You don't trade a first-round pick and then have him play the whole year just to lose him next year. And definitely at his age, around 25 going into 26, just to throw him back on the free agent market, because he would be highly sought after from like the Cincinnati Bengals. Anybody, half the league would be after him. So this was a no-brainer, and definitely at a $16.6 million hit. They will work things out. Now, in the Brett Veach era, they've only had to put the franchise tag on 3 players: Dee Ford, Chris Jones, and now Orlando Brown. This could be more similar to the Chris Jones, where when it became July, deadline time is when he signed his extension. I see that happening here as well. He'll sign his extension in July, and he'll beat that not the trade deadline, but that deadline to hit his extension. It won't be like D Ford. KC knew what they were doing, and it worked to perfection with D Ford. It was hit him with the franchise tag. He was coming off hot season. Pass rushers, everybody needs them. And San Fran bit, and it kind of bit them in the ass, but Brett Veach, that's why you can never lose any type of hope with him, because he knows what he's doing, and this is good, because once Orlando Brown signs his long-term deal, he's going to be the guy to lock up that left tackle position for the next 5 to hopefully 10 years. He'll be rolling with Mahomes throughout his career. That's what we can hope for. And for the people that bash on Orlando Brown, yeah, he did not have a perfect season, but at that too, he had a really good season, and it was something that we should not like blink an eye, turn a head to, because you got to remember, when he was in Baltimore, he was solely a right tackle wanting to be a left tackle. This was basically his first full year being a left tackle, and also learning a new scheme, which people say Andy Reid's offensive scheme is hard to learn, and he only allowed 4 sacks, 7 penalties, and I think he held his own. Yes, was there inconsistency? Of course. It was his first year under a new system. That's what you're gonna get. But also with someone who's so young, someone who's willing to build and learn, and man, someone his stature too, I can see him improving year in and year out, and it's something you need to get locked down. And Brett Veach did an amazing job last year with getting someone like an Orlando Brown, and then drafting his ass off with getting Creed Humphrey and then Trey Smith, and then getting the surprise move not a lot of people saw happening. Probably one of the best players in free agency, if not best player in free agency, most underrated, and Joe Thuney. Everyone was talking about Joe Thuney going somewhere else, and then KC comes out of nowhere and gets him. That's why I say free agency is so interesting with KC, because there's going to be a player out there that no one's speaking about that's going to go to Kansas City, and KC's going to nab him. That's how Brett Veach works. He works undercover. He knows he's going to get his guy. He's got his guy sought in, and that's why I mention a lot of players in these free agent videos, because you don't know who he has his eyes out for, and it's going to be interesting because it's going to surprise a lot of us. That's why you'll see all these hypothetical things for KC that I have with free agents. One of them I'm going to nail, because he just goes after everyone. So it's going to be interesting. But Orlando Brown Jr. signing the franchise tag is a positive for KC. It's not a negative. If someone tells you otherwise, they crazy, and I don't know what they smoking on, because they need to forget all about that. He's going to be your left tackle of the future. He isn't going anywhere, Chiefs fans, so you should be excited about that. With that, I'm going to close off this video, but of course, I got to leave the question. It's going to be in the comments down below. Let me know. Do you think KC should have franchise tag, or even in the future give Orlando Brown Jr. a contract extension, or do you think he's not worth that? Of course, I find it obvious, but you'll have your naysayers who think he's better off suited being a right tackle. He'll never be a great left tackle that deserves that type of money, and KC will overpay. Let me know how you feel. Should we have do it? Should we not? Should we have gave Tyrann Mathieu the franchise tag? But with that, I'm closing this out. It was good checking in with you guys. I'll check back in tomorrow.